the kind of root challenge we're working on right now as an industry is, I think of like the human robot interface, to simplify it, which is that unless you are at a very rare lab where you're truly doing all of your lab work in a really tight automated environment where the software is integrated with the hardware, is integrated with your data infrastructure, that is something a lot of folks are chasing, but are usually somewhere on the roadmap too, rather than it being really successful. And the problem this introduces is if humans are moving from station to station and science is constantly changing, you're planning an experiment this way, you get some results in, you realize you want to change to do something else, is your pipeline for transferring data from one station to another. Whether that is, I have a work cell and it's doing entire processes here, and then that data gets uploaded somewhere else. That's a little bit more elegant. But oftentimes it looks like I've got a liquid handler over here, we're going to run some processes, then we're going to move over to this analytical station over here, and I need to take whatever, plate map input went into the liquid handler and kind of map that against whatever output is coming from this analytical device. And then whatever other steps you're having, right, through these really complicated processes, something is always changing. Quickly you start losing a handle on all of this data and storing it in a way that is consistent. It is super common in pretty automated labs for folks to be running around with thumb drives with CSV files.
Sorry, what's a thumb drive?
And we've evolved a little bit. Now it's more like cloud drives than thumb drives per se. But trust me, I've run around town with a thumb drive with various liquid handler files before. It's very silly when you think about what a high-tech environment it is. And that happens because it's genuinely very, very challenging, right? Like wrangling data and creating the guardrails and incentives for humans who are working in the lab, and they are context switching all day, right? You show up, first thing you do is you grab some reagents out of the freezer, you put this one on ice, you put this one at room temperature, you try and find your other fancy reagent, which is like delayed in the mail, and you're pulling it out of a box with dry ice, so that you can start your process, because that process is going to take exactly 8 hours no matter when you start it. It's really hard for a human to then ask a human to say, okay, well, now can you format your data in a way that's really acceptable for your robot to parse later? It's just not feasible when it isn't an automatic system. And so part of the way to make this more automatic and make data more consistent in its formatting and therefore its ability to be fed into systems, whether it is an AI agent, whether it is just your LIMS environment, whether it is your analytics pipeline, you want to have the automation starting kind of, or rather present throughout the entire process. So oftentimes you'll see it in organization, especially if they have some work that is more production oriented and some that is more development oriented, is a pretty hard barrier between the infrastructure around each, which means maybe like for half of the week you are working in really manual ad hoc ways, and the other half of the week you're working in a really pipeline driven work. Or maybe that's split between teams, or maybe that is split in some other way. But that kind of diversity in the environment is going to immediately introduce some challenges in your data. And so one of the versions of this, of solving for this, is creating infrastructure that can map onto the whole environment. So not just one process here or there. Make sure it is flexible enough that you don't have to have super lockdown work in order to make use of data infrastructure. And then the other thing that will be interesting to see is whether natural language can help bridge some of this gap, natural language processing. It's, again, like very unclear at the moment. We'll have to like wait and let people play with these tools and see what they can come up with. But it may very well be that part of the solution long term is tools that can take in more ad hoc humanized data formats and turn them into something that is more standardized. That is something that would definitely be a big lifesaver for the industry.